Okay, so now once you have gone through the AZ900 Microsoft Azure Fundamental Exam course details, it is the time we have to start our learning by following the learning path, which is also suggested by Microsoft. In this case, we are going to first start with learning path number 1, which is going to take you through the cloud concepts and the associated cloud benefits and the different types which are associated with that. Now, this particular learning path does not have any kind of practical hands-on or any kind of labs associated with this. This is all conceptual things which you need to understand, and you need to use all this conceptual learning in our coming learning path. Before proceeding further, I advise you to keep this particular URL handy. As we know, this is the link of that particular learning path course, which is officially for Microsoft Azure Fundamentals. And we are going to learn everything in the same manner and in the same order. This is my learning path number 1, which is focusing on this 3 modules. And that is what we are going to start right now. It is advisable that after going through this video course, after completing my first learning path, you should go through this particular reading documents which are available on this particular link. Let's focus on the learning path outline. As discussed in this learning path number 1, first we are going to focus about cloud computing. We'll talk about what is this cloud computing actually. Inside this, what kind of shared responsibilities are there? Means what kind of things will be taken care by cloud provider, in this case Microsoft, and then what kind of things will be managed by the user who's using the cloud. We'll talk about cloud models. We will also discuss about capital versus operational costing, because many newcomers who are moving towards cloud will have a question in mind that whether cloud is beneficial for me in terms of cost. Is it going to be more expensive for my organization and for my client? And obviously, we have to give answers to everyone. But before that, we need to understand what kind of capital and operational costing comparisons are going to be there. Then we'll talk about cloud benefits. Obviously, we need to know what benefits cloud is giving to us so that we can utilize them, and then we can take advantage of those benefits in our day-to-day work. And the third one is cloud service type. I will say in this learning path, the third module is the most important one. And that is also one of the module where most people get confused with. Infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service are the 3 cloud service types. If you're hearing this first time, I wonder you're a little late in entering into the cloud world. But I'm sure most of you have heard these 3 words. And I'm also sure that some of you will have confusion in these 3 words, which we are going to clarify in the module number 3. As of now, let's start with our first module, which is cloud computing. This module of cloud computing is going to give you a difference between how on-premise infrastructure, how the traditional infrastructure which organizations have used from last couple of years is different, and compared to that, how cloud computing is better. Let's focus on the main objective of this particular domain, and that is, first we have to define what is this cloud computing. What is the definition of cloud computing as per any particular new learner? Once we understand what is cloud computing, we'll focus on defining cloud models, including 3 models are there: public, private, and hybrid. Then we have to talk about identify appropriate use case for each cloud model. Now, which one you're going to use and which model is perfect for your industry and your customer, that is what we have to decide. We need to describe the consumption-based model, which is comparatively a new model. When cloud computing was invented, initially it was having private, public, and hybrid kind of models. And consumption-based model is something which is came up after a couple of years, which is a new thing and very, very popular. We have to compare cloud pricing models also so that we can understand which one is cost beneficial and which one is required. Let's start with what is cloud computing. Definition says that cloud computing is the delivery of a computing service over the internet, enabling faster innovation, flexible resources, and economies of scale. Now, this definition is telling me that when I'm using a cloud computing is combination of these three things. This is a model for enabling on-demand access to a shared pool of configurable computing resources. Now, this computing resources can be compute, networking, or storage. If you need a compute mechanism, CPU, memory, or any kind of processing power, or maybe you want to do networking of this kind of multiple computes, where you want to create virtual networks, subnet, you want to configure your kind of a private IP address range, or maybe you want to expose this compute using some public IPs. Maybe you want to store your data, which can be in a structured, unstructured, or semi-structured way. You have a storage services provided with that. This is also going to focus on rapidly provisioning and releasing with the minimal management efforts. So cloud computing is providing compute, network, and storage services to you, but it is also going to make your life easy because provisioning and deprovisioning these resources in the cloud is very, very easy, and the efforts which you have to put from your side are going to be super minimal. These are some of the reasons people actually prefer cloud computing over the traditional infrastructure. Because if you're working in IT industry as a network engineer, as a data engineer, or maybe you are the one who's managing multiple virtual machines or physical computers for your organization, then you know that it's a painful job. You have to spend hours in managing the computing infrastructure. Now, before we understand how this compute network and storage services will be available to us in the cloud computing environment, let's understand what kind of cloud models are there. First, we have private cloud. Private cloud is mostly going to be managed by one single organization. If you're working in an IT organization where your company is a tech giant and they have their own on-premise data centers, they have their own physical infrastructure, compute, network, storage services, then most probably you are actually already using private cloud. In this case, organizations are responsible for operating the services which they provide. And they do not provide the access of these services to any person who's outside the organization. As the name suggests, it's private. Outsiders who are not employee of the organizations, who are not client of the organizations, they cannot use any piece of this private cloud services. Private cloud is one of the good way when you want to take control. When you means you are an organization, you're not an individual user. Most individual users does not afford to have a private cloud. But an organization who do not want to put things privately for security reasons, for them, private cloud is the best choice. The second one is a public cloud. Public cloud is owned by the cloud service hosting provider. Now, if you have heard about Microsoft Azure Cloud, that's why you're here in this particular video. Obviously, you know that there are some other clouds provided by the different companies. Azure is provided by Microsoft, but we have AWS services, Amazon Web Services, which are provided by Amazon. We have GCP, Google Cloud Platform, which is provided by Google. And same way, there are more than 30 different cloud providers available in the market right now, and they all are coming under the criteria of public clouds. They provide resources, services to multiple organizations and users. So this is not restricted to a particular kind of customer. They provide the services to even a college student who is just passed out from the college and trying to explore cloud, or even the big tech giants are using public cloud services. You can access public cloud services via secure network connections, typically over internet. They have a physical infrastructure which is spread across the globe. There are many data centers, hundreds of thousands of racks are actually configured inside that. And when you want to access their services, which can be compute, networking, or storage services, you can use it, all of them, as a service over the public internet. Now, when we know that we have private cloud and public cloud, obviously people ask this question, which is better? Which is better amongst these two? Well, the right answer is, amongst these two, the best one is actually coming in the third place, which is hybrid cloud. So, private or public are not best. Hybrid is best because this combines all the good things of public and private cloud. That's the reason the name is hybrid cloud. If you're dealing with hybrid cloud is combination of public and private clouds to allow your applications to run in the most appropriate location. I'm in this industry from last 17 years and I have heard one question more than thousands of times from my client, that how can I trust a public cloud provider? I do not want to trust Amazon or Microsoft or Google for my data privacy, for my security and all. I do not want to put my certain amount of data or certain secure or confidential things into the cloud provider's hand. I do not want to hand over that. When this kind of scenario is there, hybrid cloud is the only solution. In this case, organizations are going to have a control over their resources. Organizations are going to have a control on the compliance and the standards followed in the hybrid cloud environment. They are still going to use public cloud, but they can decide. They can decide what kind of applications and resources they want to publicly make it available on the public cloud and what kind of things they want to restrict into the private cloud. Obviously, hybrid cloud is the best option, but if you want to use a hybrid cloud as an organization, you need to have a skilled resources. That's the number one requirement. You need to have a skilled resources who can use public cloud as well as private cloud so that your customers and clients can get the benefit of both and your organization can control the compliance and security standards at the same place. The technical skills required to maintain the public and private cloud is the most important thing, and that's one of the reasons we need more people who understand cloud, especially public clouds, so that they can integrate with the on-premise services. Now, once we know the difference between public, private, and hybrid cloud, let's try to compare them. When we compare cloud model comparison, public clouds are not having any kind of capital expenditure to scale up. As I said, even if you are a student or an organization, you can start using public cloud in the matter of few minutes. Your applications can be provisioned and deprovisioned quickly, and you have to only pay for what you're using, because most of the cloud services in the public clouds are going to be allowed to you as a pay-as-you-go model. Comparatively, private clouds are actually more expensive because organization has to set up the hardware, they have to purchase the infrastructure, and they need to have a team who can maintain that. Organizations are going to have complete control over the resources and security, which is a plus point of private cloud. But as we know, it comes with the cost. They are responsible for the hardware and the infrastructure maintenance. They are responsible for the operating system updates. And in any case of any disaster recovery or failover, they need to make sure that the servers and the private cloud resources are going to be up and running in the minimal or no time. Third, and the best one, is hybrid cloud. As we know, this is going to provide the most flexible way to use clouds, because in this case we have advantages of public and private clouds both. Organizations are still able to determine where to run their application and where to keep their data. They can control security, compliance, all the legal requirements, which is maybe followed by their client requirements, or maybe it depends on which country they belong. If they belong to a UK region or a US region, or they belongs to a different part of the Asia Pacific countries, each country, each government has their own rules to follow. In order to make sure that you are using a hybrid cloud by following all the compliance standard rules, you have to configure things according to that. Now, once we know that we have these possible options to use cloud, private, public, and hybrid. Obviously, cost is another important factor which we have to keep in mind. There are two kinds of costs which we want to discuss here. First one is a capital expenditure, which we call CapEx. This is a cost which is involved in the initial investment or the upfront cost of specifying your physical infrastructure. It is a cost from CapEx which have a value that reduced over time. Obviously, you know this, that if you buy a computer today, whatever amount you're going to pay for the latest version of the processor or the latest version of the operating system, it's not going to have the same cost after 4 years or 5 years. Down the line, when the time is going on, the value of that physical infrastructure and the operating system both going to reduce. Maybe after a few years, it's not going to be useful also. So the cost which is involved with this capital expenditure is something which we have to keep in mind while using a private, public, or hybrid environment of the cloud. The other cost is operational expenditure, OPEX. Now onwards in this particular course, I'm going to call it CapEx and OPEX. Now when we talk about OPEX, this is a spend on a product or a service which is on the go, which is something like you have to pay when you are actually going to use it, something like a pay-as-you-go model. And in this case, it's not going to be a big amount or a big investment which you have to do initially. It is going to be charged to you on the monthly basis mostly. So you'll get a bill every month, or maybe you're going to check how much you have spent or how much you have used based on the resources which you're configuring on the public cloud environment. You never need to invest a big amount or pay a high infrastructure initial investment cost. You're always going to pay monthly in OPEX, operational cost. At the end of this particular module, I want to mention one word, which is consumption-based model. As I mentioned already, this is one of the most popular word in the public cloud environment in the recent time. When cloud computing was invented, this word was not there. It came up later on. The consumption-based model is very important in terms of cost saving, because in this case, cloud service providers operate on a consumption-based model, which means that the end users only pay for the resources that they use. Now, some people get confused with this term that earlier also we have something which is pay per use or pay as you go kind of model. Now in this case, what is the difference between consumption based model and pay as you go kind of a model? That comparison we are going to do in the upcoming modules. But consumption based model, it is going to be giving you a better cost prediction. It is not going to have any kind of an upfront cost charged to you. You no need to purchase or manage any costly infrastructure that is available in that. This is also going to give you an ability to pay for additional resources when they are needed. If you are going to scale your virtual machine or storage or any other compute resource associated with that, you don't need to pay any upfront cost. You have to again pay for the additional resources when you actually use that. And your billing is actually based on the actual usage, not on some estimated usage which is going to be there for coming 1 year or 2 years down the line. This consumption-based model is the heart of most of the public cloud providers, and they all are charging you based on the consumption-based model. There are slight differences which came up there whenever you're going to heard a word which is known as serverless computing. We will come to serverless computing in this course, but not right now. So you just keep this word in the mind that there is something called serverless computing, but we don't know that right now. Before that, we need to understand few more conceptual things of cloud, and that's what we are going to do in the coming modules.